On September 1st, 1939, England declared war on Germany. As I'm sure you already know, this was the start of World War II. Now, I have always been very interested in World War II, and I've watched many documentaries and things on it. But there's one source of information that I haven't really used to the full potential, and that is of my nanny and grandad. Now, they were only children in the war, so obviously didn't do any fighting, but I'm sure you'll find, just like me, their stories of the Blitz and growing up in the war very interesting indeed. So, Nanny, what was growing up in London as a child like?
Well, I can only tell you my memories.
Yes.
And I think some of my first memories when we were evacuated and Mum took us to the station and we had our gas masks in little cardboard boxes on a string around our neck. But Mum had told us we were going on holiday. I think I was 5. And I couldn't make out why my sister Joyce, who was 3 years older, and my mum were crying. I can remember keep saying to them, "Why are you crying? We're only going on a holiday." And then when we got there, we were taken to this house, and they left my brother at the blacksmith's. He was staying there. And we went to this shop, it was on the village green. Opened the door, and this lady said, "Straight up to bed." And we went straight upstairs in a dark bedroom. So in the morning we didn't really know where we were. I remember that clearly. Then after that we went down to Axminster, but then my brother and a neighbour of ours, a friend, they went off to somewhere else, and we went to Chardstock, Somerset, and we were waiting in the village hall school, and we thought nobody wanted us because we were the last left, Joyce and I. But apparently, because my mum had dressed us quite well, we were given to a quite posh local family. They kept us for them, the Chowns, in the Charles. It was outside of the village, and we were there quite a long time, and then we went to someone called Mrs. Casey, and we stayed there. She was very nice. And then we went to a farm. That wasn't so nice, because he had a son and daughter, and the son wasn't nice to Joyce. He was always hurting her, used to twist her wrists. And so because of that I ran away. Why I thought running away would help, I don't know. But there was a tree opposite the farm, and I thought I could live in that tree. And then when I left, on my own, didn't take Joyce with me, I walked into the village and didn't quite know what to do, and a man was gardening. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Running away." And he happened to be the policeman. So he took me to the police station, called the people who were staying with. There was a terrible, commotion because I'd run away, and the farmer's saying she's never coming back in this house again. And because of that, we went back to London just in time for the doodlebugs, which was very exciting, because we used to be in the shelter in the garden, and you used to hear them come, and when they stopped, the engine stopped, that's when they would come down. And we all played this game where you'd say, "Over, over, over," because once it stopped, it was coming down. And my dad was in the home guard, and he would go out when we were in the shelter, and he would often come back and say, "Everything all right down there?" We'd say, "Yes." But the most exciting bit was next day you could go and see who was bombed out. I love bombed out buildings. Because children see it differently, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
They're the things I remember. And
do you remember any close bombs? Were there any close to you?
We got up once, and we had no wall between 2 rooms, and the windows were all out. And my dad's armchair, where he always sat, there was this huge glass arrow right in the middle of it. Thank God he hadn't been sitting there. But it was great fun because we could climb through and go out the other door. And the other thing I always remember, when the sirens went, Mum used to say, come on, we're going to shelter. We used to say, no, we're staying here in bed. We didn't want to go in the shelter. And she said, we get bombed. Oh, we don't.
Don't care.
We used to have to go down to the shelter. In the end, my mum put one huge mattress over all the area, and instead of having bunks, and we should jumped in and slept where we landed.
Good fun.
And I remember when the war ended, I was in Peckham Rye Park, and normally you had to be home by a certain time, but nobody was going home. Everybody seemed very happy, and I felt I was really daring, staying out late in the park. Oh, I remember a neighbour's son coming back, had been in a prisoner of war camp. And the awful thing is, when the soldiers came back, we used to go out in the street and watch them come back and stare at them. And I remember he came down the road, we're all staring at him. He was like a walking skeleton. Weird. And when you think about it, that was horrible, but that's what we did, you know. And then I remember when my brother Ted came back, I didn't remember him before the war, and he'd gone at 18. And then I was waiting, we knew he was coming, I was waiting at the gate, and my neighbour said to me, that's your brother down there, and I went tearing down the road to cuddle him, but I didn't know him really.
Oh.
Yeah, and of course he's 97 now.
Thank you very much
So
for
I think
sharing.
that's all I can remember.
Thank you. It's very, very kind of you to share that with me.
Thank you.
Now, Grandad, what can you tell me about your time as a child in the Blitz and the war and growing up?
Well, when war broke out, I was age 9, and obviously we were evacuated like lots of other young children. But my brother and I were evacuated down to a little place in Sussex called Peacehaven, which put us 24 miles just away from the Germans. So we weren't exactly away back. We enjoyed life there. We went to school and obviously and things like that. But unfortunately, my mother passed away, and my father was in the army. So we were then had to come back to London, and eventually we lived with my grandmother. And just as the reason also was that there was the lull at the commencement of the war when nothing really was happening. And as we came back to live in London was when the Blitz started. So, obviously, you know, being that young, we weren't really fully aware of all the impact of war. But the things we remembered is obviously that when the air raids were saying, we used to go and sleep in the underground station in the Borough High Street, which is in Bermondsey. And most mornings, after the all clear had gone, we'd come up and obviously we'd sort of look around the area and see who'd been bombed and who wasn't. Luckily enough, our place where we were living at the time wasn't bombed. And part of the enjoyment was we used to go around all the areas where it had been blitzed to find scrap, which they called shrapnel, of bombs and of obviously the anti-aircraft guns. And then obviously, eventually, towards the end of the war, I was 14, and then I started working whilst the Blitz was still on. And there were occasions when the first V1 came across, which was called the doodle bug or the flying bomb, was one night. My brother and I were asleep in the bedroom, and we heard the guns going, and we looked out the window and we thought, obviously, that we'd shot a plane down. But it wasn't a plane, it was a doodle bug flying over. And the only other really memorable thing I can remember was I started work at 14 in 1944, and the war was still on. And the first thing you knew about the V2s, which were the rockets, is when they actually crashed and blew up. And one day I was in this cafe, and I was sitting in by the windows. I said, and all of a sudden, before we knew it, it was blown across the cafe because the V2 had landed a few hundred yards away.
Oh gosh.
So that was really the things mainly you can remember about the war.
Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.